In a move no one saw coming, Prince William made a final, unflinching decision. Meghan Markle is permanently banned from royal life. The bombshell ruling includes no royal events, no access to family gatherings, and no path back, ever. Prince Harry wasn't warned. When he heard the words, he broke down in tears, blindsided by a brother who chose duty over blood. What followed was silence, heartbreak, and the official end of a royal bond once thought unbreakable. William drops the bomb. Meghan permanently banned from royal life. It happened without warning. At 9:14 a.m., news desks across Britain were alerted to an unannounced press appearance at Kensington Palace. No build-up, no briefing, no advance guidance. When Prince William stepped forward alone, no aides, no senior courtiers, no king beside him, the gravity of the moment became immediately clear. This was not ceremonial. This was not procedural. This was personal. William spoke with controlled restraint, his tone firm, almost severe. He confirmed what had never been said aloud before, but had long been feared inside palace walls. Meghan Markle was permanently excluded from royal life. Not suspended, not distanced. Banned. The decision applied universally and without exception. Royal properties, state occasions, family gatherings, funerals, weddings, coronations, private events, all closed indefinitely. There would be no appearances for family reasons, no quiet attendance at memorials, no reconciliation gestures years down the line. The line had been drawn, and it was final. What stunned observers most was who wasn't there. No King Charles, no palace legal counsel, no communications director. William stood alone. That absence spoke louder than any prepared statement. This was not an institutional deflection. This was a future king taking ownership of a decision that would define his reign. Sources later confirmed Prince Harry was not informed in advance. There had been no warning call, no private heads-up. He learned the same way the world did, through screens and headlines. Within minutes, insiders say, Harry broke down in private. For William, this announcement was not about retaliation. It was about closure. Palace officials described the move as long considered, but only finalized after what William viewed as irreversible damage to the monarchy's integrity. The wording of the decision was precise. Lawyers had combed every sentence. The ban was not framed as punishment, but as protection. Protection of the crown. Protection of boundaries. Protection of a future William believed was already under threat. As cameras cut away, one thing was unmistakable. This was not a negotiation. And it was not reversible. The bomb had been dropped, and the shockwaves were only beginning. Why William could no longer stay silent. For years, silence had been the strategy. After the Sussexes stepped back from royal duties, the palace chose restraint over confrontation. No public rebuttals, no detailed corrections, no visible escalation. The belief was simple: time would dull the conflict. William no longer believed that. Behind closed doors, aides say the shift had been building quietly. Each new interview, each commercial project, each appearance that leaned, directly or indirectly, on royal association added pressure. But what finally forced William's hand was not emotion, it was pattern. Palace sources confirmed that ongoing commercial deals continued to reference royal status in ways that breached prior agreements. Branding language, visual cues, implied proximity to the institution. Each instance alone might have been manageable. Together, they formed a trend William could no longer ignore. The future king reportedly told aides, "Enough damage has been done. It's time." To William, the issue was no longer about family strain. It was about exploitation. The monarchy, he believed, was being used as both shield and sword. Shield against criticism, sword against the institution itself. What once felt like distance now felt like exposure. The silence that had once protected dignity was now amplifying risk. William saw a crown being drawn into disputes it could not answer without undermining itself. And so he made a calculation few heirs ever make. That confrontation was safer than ambiguity. Internally, William framed the decision not as exile, but as containment. Clear boundaries. No gray areas. No future reinterpretations. He concluded that if the monarchy continued to say nothing, it would be interpreted as consent, or worse, weakness. The decision to speak was not impulsive. It was the end of patience. And once William reached that conclusion, the next step became unavoidable. Harry's immediate reaction: tears, rage, and silence. The call came less than an hour before the announcement. No preamble, no negotiation, just notification. According to multiple insiders, Prince Harry was informed by William's office, not by William himself. The message was brief and factual. The decision had been made. The statement was going out. Harry was blindsided. Friends say his initial reaction was disbelief, followed quickly by visible distress. He reportedly paced, raised his voice, then fell silent. When the announcement aired, he watched it alone. Those close to him described the aftermath as emotionally overwhelming. This wasn't just a royal decision, it was a brother's judgment. Meghan, sources say, urged Harry to respond immediately, to push back, to frame the move as cruelty. Harry refused. For the first time in years, he chose silence, not strategy. That silence spoke volumes. Those who know him well say Harry felt trapped between loyalty to his wife and a realization that the door had closed completely, not just publicly, but privately. One friend recalled him asking quietly, "Is this still my family, or just an institution now?" The question hung unanswered. Harry did not issue a statement. He did not contact the palace again that day. Instead, he withdrew, emotionally and physically, leaving calls unanswered. For him, this wasn't a policy dispute. It felt like betrayal wrapped in authority. And for the first time since leaving royal life, Harry appeared to understand something with painful clarity. This decision was not about reconciliation. It was about permanence. And whatever came next, nothing would be the same again. The private family vote, who backed William's decision. Though Prince William made the announcement alone, palace insiders confirmed the decision was not unilateral. In the weeks leading up to the announcement, a private vote was held among the senior working royals, those still officially carrying out duties on behalf of the crown. The participants were few: King Charles, Queen Camilla, Princess Anne, and William himself. No advisors, no press secretaries, just blood, rank, and responsibility. The vote was unanimous. Every one of them agreed. Meghan's relationship with the monarchy had crossed a point of no return, and further ambiguity would only harm the institution they were tasked to protect. The decision wasn't made in a single meeting. It was the product of accumulated concerns, years of conflict, headlines, and fractured protocol. But by the time they gathered for the final discussion, there was no more debate. There was only execution. Princess Anne, never one for sentiment, is said to have delivered the clearest rationale. "You're protecting the future, by closing the past. Sources say even Queen Camilla, who had previously encouraged patience and privacy, supported the move this time without hesitation. For her, the damage had become systemic, not just reputational, but operational. And King Charles, who had long hoped for quiet reconciliation, reportedly gave his consent with a heavy heart. According to one insider, he simply said, "Do what must be done, but make it clean." There was no ceremony, no announcement of unity, but when William moved forward, he did so with the full weight of the monarchy behind him. Notably absent from the conversation were Prince Edward, Sophie, or any of the younger generation. This was a decision made by the inner circle, those bound by decades of duty, tradition, and now damage control. For them, this wasn't a rejection of individuals. It was an act of institutional preservation. And the message was clear. The Sussex chapter had officially closed. Meghan's royal conduct dossier, the internal file that ended it. For years, rumors had swirled about a secret palace dossier, an internal record of Meghan's time as a working royal. Now, for the first time, palace aides close to the process confirm. The file exists, and it was a major factor in the decision to permanently cut ties. The dossier was not formalized for punishment. It was a record of repeated incidents that gradually eroded trust between Meghan and senior palace staff. While some of its contents were widely speculated, others remained buried, until now. According to insiders, the file included unauthorized interviews given during her time as a working royal, leaked information about royal schedules and internal conflicts, a record of private photos and correspondence passed to outside contacts without clearance, a series of bullying allegations from palace staff, never released publicly, but taken seriously at the highest levels, detailed memos on protocol violations, including refusals to attend mandatory briefings and attempts to override established hierarchy. One former aide described Meghan's approach bluntly. She saw rules as optional. That's where the breakdown began. The palace had quietly tolerated much of this during her tenure, often opting to absorb the damage rather than risk another media storm. But the problems continued even after the couple stepped back. New projects, deals, and public commentary still carried the imprint of royal privilege. Despite agreements to sever working ties, Meghan's team reportedly continued using royal associations in branding pitches, marketing decks, and press language. When senior royals reviewed the dossier in full, they saw not a list of mistakes, but a pattern. A pattern of boundary crossing, a pattern of disregard. A pattern that, to them, posed an ongoing reputational threat. That's when William decided the palace couldn't afford more gray areas. The file was no longer just historical, it was evidence that the risk was still alive. And so, what had once been private concerns turned into public consequences. The file wasn't leaked, it didn't need to be. The ban said it all. The Oprah fallout. William's breaking point. It was the moment everything changed. The Oprah interview, broadcast globally in 2021, was supposed to be a candid recounting. What it became was a grenade, one that tore through Buckingham Palace and shattered any illusion of silent peace. The accusations were wide-ranging and devastating. Racism, neglect, isolation. The world heard Harry and Meghan speak with sorrow, frustration, and accusation, and the monarchy had no clear response. For Prince William, it wasn't just damaging, it was infuriating. Palace sources confirmed that William watched the interview live with senior aides. What began as tension turned to anger, especially at allegations he believed were strategically exaggerated to control the narrative. The accusation that an unnamed royal had made racist remarks about the couple's unborn child hit hardest. It wasn't just the claim, it was the global implication that the monarchy itself was fundamentally prejudiced. Behind closed doors, William believed the interview was not healing. It was weaponized content. The next day, he made headlines with one sentence: "We are very much not a racist family." But inside, something deeper had fractured. William reportedly told Charles shortly after, "They're not coming back. Not ever." From that moment on, William shifted his role. He stopped hoping for a return and began preparing for distance. While the palace maintained a public front of neutrality, William was documenting every ripple, legal, media, diplomatic. Quietly, he began assembling the case for full and final separation. To him, the Oprah interview wasn't a misstep. It was an attack, and one the institution could not afford to absorb twice. For William, it marked the end of grace and the beginning of permanent boundaries. No titles, no future. Meghan and Harry's children erased from royal line. The fallout of William's decision went beyond Meghan. It extended to her children. In a follow-up to the original statement, Kensington Palace confirmed that Archie and Lilibet would receive no royal titles, would hold no HRH status, and would be formally excluded from the line of succession. While the possibility had been deferred for years, left unresolved during previous discussions, the matter was now closed. Final, irreversible, not symbolic, not delayed. Enforced by direct royal order, backed by legal precedent, and the full support of King Charles. The statement used clear, unambiguous language. The children of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will live as private citizens. They will not carry royal titles or undertake public duties on behalf of the Crown. Behind the wording was a deeper truth. The monarchy was drawing a boundary that had never been so publicly defined for royal descendants. No loopholes. No future re-entry. The message was simple. Royal privilege comes with royal duty, and that duty was rejected. This was not a punishment against the children themselves. Palace sources were careful to clarify this, but it was a reflection of the parents' departure from the system and the monarchy's refusal to leave gray areas open to media exploitation. One insider explained, "It's not about emotion, it's about precedent. The institution must protect the line of succession from narrative manipulation." For Prince Harry, this was perhaps the most painful blow. While he had willingly stepped away from royal life, he had quietly hoped his children might be allowed to retain a connection to their heritage. Not for public use, but for identity. Now, that door had closed. There would be no Prince Archie, no Princess Lilibet, not in name, not in future, not even in theory. The monarchy had made a generational decision and drawn the curtain on the next one. The business empire collapse. How the decision hurts Meghan's brand. For Meghan Markle, the royal connection was never just personal. It was also professional. Every brand partnership, production deal, and global platform leaned, directly or indirectly, on her royal identity. From Netflix specials to book releases, the implication was always the same. She was not just a public figure. She was a former royal speaking from inside the gates. That dynamic changed overnight. With Prince William's public declaration and the formal stripping of royal privileges, Meghan's ability to reference the monarchy, legally or commercially, was severed. According to palace sources, enforceable legal measures have been quietly activated. These clauses prevent the use of titles, imagery, and any content suggesting royal association. Even phrases like the Duchess of Sussex are now subject to strict usage review in commercial contexts. Industry experts say the impact will be immediate and long-term. Major partners, including Netflix, Spotify, and several publishing houses, are now re-evaluating existing agreements. Many of these deals were built on royal proximity. Without it, Meghan's perceived value in the global market shifts dramatically. A senior figure in the entertainment industry summarized the situation bluntly. The royal link was the brand. No titles, no access, no insider perspective. That changes everything. Even future speaking engagements may take a hit. Without formal ties to the royal family, the fees and demand that once followed her may shrink significantly. The palace, for its part, has no intention of interfering further. But William's decision ensures one thing. The monarchy will no longer allow its image to fuel outside ventures. The commercial curtain has fallen. What Meghan builds from here will have to stand without the crown in the background. Inside William and Harry's final call. A brotherly bond broken. It was never meant to be reconciliation. Not this time. Not after what had already been said in public, signed in legal terms, and felt behind palace doors. But still, Prince Harry made the call. It was early evening, 2 days after Prince William's announcement, when the two brothers finally spoke, their first direct conversation in weeks. No aides, no buffers, just a line between two men whose bond had once been unshakable. Now, it stood in pieces. The call lasted 14 minutes. Palace sources confirm it was arranged not as a peace offering, but a formality. A final attempt by Harry to salvage something personal from a decision that had reshaped his family's future. But it quickly became clear. The divide was no longer emotional. It was structural. Harry initiated the call with a heavy voice. According to insiders close to the Sussex circle, he was visibly emotional, frustrated, and pleading, not for himself but for Meghan, and more than that, for his children. He asked William, not as heir, but as brother. Please don't make this forever. But William had already crossed that line. He was calm, measured, unshaken. And when he responded, the words carried no warmth, only clarity. It's not about her anymore. It's about the crown. It wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. It landed like stone. For a few long seconds, Harry said nothing. Then his tone shifted. No longer pleading, just confused. Quiet. What do I tell my kids? What do I say when they ask why they're not part of that world? William didn't soften. He didn't offer a bridge, a clause, or a future condition. He only reiterated what the palace had already declared. The decision was final. No special attendance at family events. No titles for Archie or Lilibet. No space left open for a gradual return. What Harry had feared in private was now written in royal stone. When the call ended, friends say Harry wept alone, not because of the royal loss, but because of the personal one. The boy who once stood beside his brother in black suits behind their mother's coffin was now speaking to a man who had become a monarch before a sibling. For William, this wasn't vengeance. It was preservation. The monarchy had reached a moment where ambiguity risked collapse. And so, emotion had to be sacrificed for clarity. But for Harry, it was something else. It was the day his last tie to his former life was severed. Not by death, but by decision. He didn't issue a statement. He didn't respond publicly. But in private, those closest to him say he repeated one sentence more than once. He chose the crown over me. What began as a call between brothers ended in a silence far louder than words. Not tension, not resentment, but finality. And for the first time, there was no one left to mediate it. No Diana, No queen, just two men, raised in the same shadow, now standing on opposite ends of a legacy they were both born into, but no longer share. This was not the cold shoulder of disagreement. This was the closing of a door. Not slammed, locked. Forever, perhaps. Or at least, until the silence says something new. What happens now? The end of a royal chapter. In the days following Prince William's declaration, the monarchy did not retreat into silence, but it did not expand on its message either. The statement stood alone, unembellished, uncorrected, and unchanged. There would be no revisions, no reconsiderations, no reversals. Behind palace walls, operations continued. The crown did not pause for fallout. Instead, it absorbed the shift and moved forward, with William at the wheel, guiding a monarchy that had chosen institutional clarity over emotional compromise. For the first time, the working royal family was fully, publicly defined. There were no more blurred titles, no unspoken exceptions. The Sussexes were no longer just separate. They were gone. Within this redefined structure, Prince Harry now stood as a royal by birth only, not by title, duty, or involvement. A sliver of personal contact remained, occasional calls, messages through intermediaries. But even that felt fragile. The closeness once shared by two brothers was now a distant memory sealed by protocol. As for Meghan, her future no longer runs adjacent to the crown. Not in access, not in branding, not in presence. She remains the Duchess of Sussex in name only, stripped of royal relevance, barred from royal spaces, and disconnected from royal lineage by design, not distance. The decision drew sharp lines across 1,000 years of royal tradition. Never before had an heir made such a permanent severing of a living royal family member. But palace aides say the decision was not about history. It was about survival. A senior courtier put it simply, "This isn't punishment, it's containment. The monarchy cannot afford repeating cycles of public injury." In many ways, this was the real exit, not the 2020 departure from duties, not the televised interviews, but this, the formal end of any path back. There would be no appearances at future coronations. No family rows at Westminster Abbey. No shared balcony moments. No quiet reconciliations behind palace gates. Whatever once lived between William, Harry, and Meghan had been formally documented, judged, and closed. For the monarchy, the message was enduring. Royalty is not a story to be rewritten. It is a system to be preserved. What remains now is a family reshaped, an institution reinforced, and a legacy realigned around duty, not sentiment. In private, those closest to William say he carries no joy in the outcome, only resolve. This was a decision made not in anger, but in cold understanding that not every fracture can be repaired. Some must be sealed and left behind. The monarchy, as ever, marches forward, not untouched, but intact. And for the Sussexes, a chapter that once began with hope, ceremony, and global attention has ended with silence, distance, and no road back. This is where their royal story closes. Not with exile, but with erasure. Prince William's decision didn't just redraw royal boundaries, it redrew family lines. With Meghan fully banned, the monarchy sent a clear message. Legacy must be protected, even at the cost of personal ties. The fallout was immediate. Harry wept, their final phone call ending with more silence than solution. Their children, Archie and Lilibet, were left titleless, erased from the line of succession. Meghan's business empire began to fracture, no longer able to trade on royal association. And behind palace gates, the royal family moved forward, quietly, firmly, without looking back. What was once seen as a temporary rift has now become permanent exile. For Harry, the weight of that truth hit harder than any headline. And for William, this moment wasn't about punishment. It was about clarity. The monarchy will endure, but the cost, this time, was family. A chapter closed, a bond broken, and a crown held tighter than ever before.